Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel for what I believe is the first video that I've posted in about a month. Don't worry, everything is fine. I've just been kind of enjoying the summer, going on a couple vacations, and took a little break from YouTube, but I am going to be back in the swing of things now that sort of the proper summer is over and we're kind of moving back into the year. I will be putting a little bit more Marvel Contest of Champions content up on the channel, and hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Now, unfortunately, I came back to wanting to make these videos, and the first topic that was on my mind was the changes to Alliance War with the persistent placement phase. And I gotta say, my take on this is gonna be pretty negative. And for me, that's not something that I normally am posting content on. I want to say very clearly to everybody that the CCP does not suppress people's personal opinions. I just tend to have a more optimistic lookout when it comes to things related to the MCOC community, and know that, in general, Kabam has the best intentions for the players while also trying to be a for-profit company that makes enough money to keep the development of the game going. And those things are always in a balance, and you have to take a look at it. That said, I think there are some major issues with the changes to Alliance War, and that the changes were sort of only made for sort of like a small subset of the player base that is going to greatly benefit from them, while there are many alliances, both at the very tippy top of Masters and those that take it a little bit more casually, maybe do 2 BG or 1 BG groups. And the thing is, a lot of feedback was given. I saw some of it being given. I saw it on the forums. I saw it in chats. People were passing it up the chain in all the ways that they knew, with their concerns about this new system. And it seems like the concerns are now playing out in real time, and everybody's acting surprised like nobody ever said this stuff was going to happen. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think are the two major issues with this. First off, we have to talk about masteries. Now, I'm not going to be talking about these too much because I actually believe that the mastery issue is something that affects a very tiny population of the game. However, some of these people are the loudest people in the game because they happen to be very competitive players who are also content creators. People hate this mastery change because there's a very specific window where you have to have your defensive masteries on. That is, if you're in an alliance that cares about what masteries you place with, which is like anything in tier 1 and maybe some tier 2 alliances. I get it. This affects a very small amount of people. I can speak from my experience as someone who is in tier 1. I mostly ran non-recoil, and then maybe like 4 out of 12 wars I would do some kind of optimized offense placement, so that I would have like certain attackers have a very good setup, and then I would immediately switch back. So for me, someone that doesn't do big grinds, that doesn't need recoil on all the time, I honestly don't care about the mastery change. It didn't affect me personally. I think even the majority of tier 1 players it doesn't affect, but there is a small subset of players who get a lot of fights, who take a large fight load, that do need to optimize their masteries quite often, or maybe they're a main with someone like Omega Red or somebody that needs recoil, where yeah, this is a big pain. It really changes the flow of how you play the game because of all the swaps and at the specific times that you need to get them. That issue has been hashed out a lot, but I'm going to be presenting to you two issues that I think are way worse and hitting a larger population of this community. And just as an overview, the main issues I'm going to be talking about are the alliances that have 2 battle groups or 1 battle group with sort of like a first come first serve opt-in war style, have been doing this style of war since the beginning of Alliance War, all the way back in 2015 or 2016, and now that entire system has gone out the window because there's no more placement phase for people to opt into war. Your defense is just locked in. Now, there's another issue I want to talk about, and that is that basically war is on attack 6 out of 7 days of the week. And we're going to talk about this a lot because, you might think that having more time to attack is a good thing, but in my opinion, I actually think it's a detrimental thing to things like mental health and balance in the game, just because of the fact that we are humans and the way that we approach things. Now, before I get into the negative, the one positive I will say here is there is a subset of alliances, which is probably pretty large, of people that do 3 battle groups that do not have hashed out like full plans of the war. They just sort of like assign lanes at the beginning of the season and you stick to your lane, and that don't require defensive masteries. So it's okay if you place with recoil on and things like that. You know you're on path 1, you just join when you want, you do path 1, you kind of just YOLO through the bosses, and that's how you do war. You do 3 battle groups, everyone does every war. For those alliances, this is a very, very positive change. You have a longer time to attack, you can join whenever you want, you don't have to worry about changing your masteries, and you just knock it out and you're done. I think for alliances like that, the fact that your defense is just in there, you can literally set it and forget it like they said, that's good. However, what I'm trying to prove here is that there are many alliances, both more competitive than that and more casual than that, who are really negatively being affected. Last thing I say before I get into the details, I'm trying my best to not just be like, change is bad, because that is a way that a lot of people approach MCOC. Anything that is different is bad. I have some very concrete arguments for why I think this is a very bad change. I've been in alliances that push for masters. I've made top 3 masters before. I've also been in casual alliances. I am currently in VAC, which is among some of my best friends in the game. I'm so excited to be back here and be with them and playing with them. And they have a very good system of using 2 BG wars to try to include everybody, but also give people a break. So let's break down how that works. Essentially, the way that a 2 BG alliance is going to approach war in the old system is that you have basically a 20-hour placement phase, right? We all know what that means, where the map is empty, and then the people that want to join that war are basically able to opt in for the war. There can be some discussions like, hey, I'm going to be on vacation, so I won't be placing. Can somebody please, make it into BG1 for this time? And then the burden on the officers at that point is essentially like when the map is almost full, you just kind of look and you're like, hey guys, we need one more person in BG2. Can we please have a volunteer? And, you would think that would be haphazard, but when you have 30 alliance members and 20 slots, it always fills up, and it always sort of naturally ebbs and flows with when you're busy. You don't have to do war. You can just be away on vacation, not even think about placing. Someone else will take your place. For those that are really sweaty tryhard and want to be in every single war, you just get your defenders in. You can do as many wars as you want. There's many people in these alliances that want exactly 5 wars so they can get their minimum for the rewards. They just make sure that they're proactive enough to get in there, do their 5 wars, and then get out. Some people just front load the first 5 wars and then they make space for other people. Generally speaking, there's a roster of like maybe 6 or 7 people per battle group that try to do every war. So there is some consistency of people, going on the same lane every time. But when you want to take a break, like I often did in VAC, I would probably do 10 out of the 12 wars and then make room for other people. Like I said, it was very natural, and that placement phase gives you the ability to opt in instead of being locked in before the whole thing even starts. So the fact that there is no longer a placement phase means that everybody's defenses are locked in and everyone needs to be thinking ahead. Well, let's see, in 36 hours, I'm going to be on a fishing trip and I don't want to be in this war, so I have to pull my defenders out now. And then an officer needs to be like, oh, so-and-so pulled out of the war, we need a replacement, but you need to be, while we're still attacking, thinking about getting that other person in. Now, this feedback was immediately seen by people that run these types of 2 BG wars. The feedback was given to Kabam, and I feel like nothing was done to address the issues. It was just kind of like, well, we sort of have our plan and like it'll work itself out. And now the outcry from people in these types of alliances is very loud, and the feedback is hopefully being heard. But I feel like if any changes were to happen, it's not something you can just snap your fingers and change. Like, this system has shipped, and it's the one that we're living with for the foreseeable future. And that's just scratching the surface. Now, the other thing about this with the persistent placement is you need to put your defenders in the map harder than the one that you currently are at, and the map lower. For example, we're tier 4. Now, the other day in war number 3, something kind of wild happened where our tier 4 alliance matched with a tier 2 alliance. So that means the matchmaking was very lopsided, and we bumped all the way up to tier 2. Now what happens is that Kabam flips a coin, like, RNG, and you get one or the two maps. And we got the harder map. We got the tier 2 expert map. That's the same one that Masters Alliances fight on. And the other thing is, when that happens, you get the harder map, but you keep your small multiplier. So we were back on a tier 4 multiplier for points, but we had to do this harder map. Now, insult to injury, nobody really was prepared for this, because we were not expecting to jump 2 tiers from tier 4 to tier 2. And because of that, not everyone knew, including myself, by the way. I had no defense placed. Nobody knew that we had to be filling essentially 3 maps per battle group just for these contingencies. So we joined this war against a tier 2 alliance who was much stronger than we were in general, a harder map that we weren't used to fighting. And we only placed 9 out of 20 defenders, because you can't blame our officers for like, oh, there's a chance that we're going to jump up 2 tiers next war, guys. Make sure that you place your defenders there. But the thing is, if that's the case, if you need to be prepared to do all 3 maps on every given war, that means every time somebody swaps out and somebody else takes their place, they need to do that on all 3 maps. And the officers need to be keeping tabs of this. Like, they need to either be like helicopter hovering over the maps, being like, oh, person A left and person B took their place. Make sure you do it in all 3 maps. Now I have to set the defenders on all these 3 maps for these like 2 people that were swapped out, but I have to do it on all 3 per battle group. It's just a ton more work versus the old way was just sort of people opt in. Then when it got toward the end, they would just kind of move the defense around to make it look a little bit, more solid of a defense. You tag a few people to be like, hey, we need 1 more in BG1, and that's the end of it. And then the other thing is, like, there are other alliances that are way less in tune with the news and with the game than my current alliance. Like, we have a few people in the CCP, we have people that read the forums that are mostly up on this, and the officers are very on top of it, very responsible. So we're heading this up pretty well. And, aside from that misstep that we had against the tier 2 alliance, we're mostly keeping track of it. People are like, hey, don't forget, the next attack phase is starting. If you want to get in, like, this is your time to swap in, like, make sure we get all these things. They're on top of it. But there are definitely way more casual alliances who might just be really confused. Like, what? The war just ended and the new one has started? How do I get into war? It says it's full. Things like that. So you guys need to understand that the 1BG and 2BG battle groups right now, when it comes to Alliance War, are really getting hosed by this change. It's making the officers have to do triple the work, which is just not how it should be. Like, the goal of doing these more casual alliances is that, at least for me, when I'm in VAC, we're in tier 4, which means the map is challenging. It's fun. We sometimes go up against alliances that are better than us and we're punching up. There's teamwork, we get it done, but you don't have to do every war. We're not doing like tier 12 wars with 3 battle groups and we're just rolling over it. Like, these are challenging fights still in tier 4. And I think there are some very good players in this alliance who like that challenge, but where they want to chill is they don't want to do 12 wars. They'd love to do 8 wars or 10 wars or just their minimum 5. And that was sort of the beauty of this system. The trade-off is you get like gold 1 or gold 2 rewards, but based on the effort that you're putting in and the fun that you're having with your friends, that makes sense. Now this system has completely uprooted the ability to do that, because it just makes the officers work way harder and it's more confusing for the members. You have to be thinking ahead. All right, so that's my main issue with this. When it comes to the 2BG and the 1BG alliances, I want to now hit on like the 6 days of war a week thing. So here's the thing. The argument that I hear on the other side is like, well, how could you be complaining? Now you have longer time to attack. How is that a bad thing? Well, I'm going to make an analogy. If you're kind of a nerd like me and you I've read some articles about like transportation and infrastructure that have interested me in the past. And one of the classic arguments when it comes to traffic in urban areas is statistically, if there is a highway that is very congested, you would think the way to make it a little bit freer and have the traffic flow better is to either widen the lanes or increase lanes. So many cities, like Houston has come to mind, have done this in the past. And what always happens is that maybe initially the traffic's a little bit better, but then over the next year or so, if you increase the size of the road by 2%, then the traffic is going to also increase by 2%, and you're not going to have any net change. That's because in any economy, if you create more space or you have a sale or something, you're going to overpopulate that area in the space that you just created. Now, if that doesn't make sense, let me talk about this in terms of Alliance War. We now have 40 hours to attack instead of 24. So you would think that that's better, but what it just means is that our brains are in Alliance War attack mode for 40 hours. I don't care, like if you're in an Alliance War Tier 1 and you're waiting for your officers to submit a plan, maybe the plan comes out first thing in the morning on day 2, I'm telling you, the night before that attack is live, you're looking at the map, you're thinking about it, you're thinking, who am I going to get assigned to? Like, ooh, look at this boss. I wonder if I'm going to have to take that. You're asking questions. Then the officers put the plan out, maybe in the morning on day 2. That's when the questions start. People start asking like, hey, is there an example? Is there a duel for this fight? Is somebody have a video of this fight so I can start prepping? Then you start prepping for the fights, you're thinking about it. And then the fact that there is more time means that you have to coordinate your boosts more. It means that you have to think about AQ and who is in AQ that might need to be used for Alliance War attack during that time. I'm telling you, having more time to attack is not the way to fix this problem. And you could say you have to train your brain to do something different. That's fine. But I'm telling you, we are humans, and the fact that it basically goes 40 hours of attack and then there's a tiny break and then boom, the next attack starts. Those downtimes in war when you were placing your defenders and there was no map to look at, there was nothing to do, were so important for mental health and balance in this game. I can't even tell you. When you have a war, if you die, if you're like really sad about the death, you need that 24 hours to just chill, get over it before thinking about the next war. Same thing where like if you just had like an amazing victory or you had some really great fights, you need to celebrate that and then chill out before the next war starts. When you take down a war boss, let's say, and then 4 hours later another war kicks off, even if you don't have to join right away, that is not good. We do not want this to be like a 24/7 prospect to have war where there's just one day a week where everybody gets to chill. That is not good for the game. I could go on and on about this. I hope you understand my point. Now let's talk about the solution. The solution is simple in my mind. It's what needs to happen. It's what's probably not going to happen because Econ's not going to like it. But we need to go to 2 wars a week. They wanted to give officers a planning period. That is where this whole thing started. I know they also wanted to have more officer tools to make defense easier to place. There are ways to do that that are not related to persistent placement. There can be a feature where as you place your defense, they go to the same nodes that they were before. It's something you can opt into. That's not your defenders are currently locked on the map and you have to manually remove them. However, what I think we need to do is 2 wars a week with a proper planning period. So the way that would look like is there's still a 20-hour placement phase where people can opt into war. People can place their defenders. Now, if you want to make a QOL feature where it always places the same defense on the same nodes by clicking a button, that's great. But this solves the mastery issue because the complaint is that you need to have a specific mastery setup at a certain time of day. If you have the placement phase, it's just like before. You can do your grind, you can do your content, and then when you're ready to swap your masteries, you swap them and you manually put your defenders in. This also solves the BG1 and BG2. It's just like it used to be. You can opt in. If you're on a camping trip, you're just not going to place your defense, never worry about it. Someone else will take your place, etc. Then, to give people a planning period, day 2 of war is a 24-hour planning period where the map is only visible to the officers. because I, as a member, I don't want to see that map. I want to pretend it's not happening. I don't want to join it. I don't want to know who the bosses are. I want my officers to get a preview of it so they can see it. They can make their plan. They can review the plan. They don't share the plan until attack phase starts, which will be on day 3, sort of the normal time that we're used to the war starting. Then that happens, we attack for 24 hours. Because it's 24 hours, it's a little bit easier to coordinate boosts. You know, we're used to having one day to finish it, which means you can try to get all your fights in at once, try to coordinate with other folks. Not have to worry about this 40-hour period where it's like, am I going to boost now? Am I going to boost later? Am I going to be clear now? Am I going to be clear later? Things like that. That would mean there are only 2 wars a week. So you know what? If we extend the season to 6 weeks and there are still 12 wars, I think that's a much better trade-off than having a 4-week, 8 war season. If Kabam wants us to really push for the 12 wars, we can do that. But this would be such a huge plus for players. It would give people more downtime so that they don't have to stress out about war. We would still get plenty of wars. The mode would not feel like it was on downtime. We would keep playing. You would get that planning phase, which is so essential for the high tier alliances. And you know what? Even lower tier or 2BG alliances and high tiers, like the one I'm currently in, even ones that don't plan, like you get the map leaked, you can choose not to look at it, or you can look ahead if you want. But again, it's almost like it's there. You can look at the AQ map, right? The day before, but like how many people actually click on it? Nobody actually clicks on that AQ map unless if it's like your first time doing a map. That would be the same thing. The map is there if you want it, but you cannot join. So it's sort of like out of sight, out of mind. And then you have another 24-hour attack. The plan can be released anytime if you do planning. For other people, there's a very specific placement phase, a very specific attack phase, just like it always used to be. The only trade-off for Kabam is fewer wars per week. Maybe that means people log in a little bit less, but the amount of goodwill to the community that would give to solve both the mastery issue, the war is on for 6 straight days issue, and the 1BG, 2BG issue, I think it would be such goodwill that you would make that money back somewhere else, I'm telling you. Because right now, there are very few people that are enjoying this change. And, for me personally, my alliance, my officers in VAC are being sort of bombarded by this. They're putting together spreadsheets to make sure everybody can get into war when they want. They're going to have to ask, pretty please, can you remove your defenders so that, player X can get in there and play. They have to be hovering over the maps, over 3 maps per battle group all the time, trying to get these defenders squared away. It's just too much work for Gold 1 rewards when the goal was to be inclusive and try to have fun. So anyway, I hope that this has brought some issues to the forefront for you. I don't think there are many other content creators that are going out there trying to advocate for these types of alliances. Like, we've heard about this mastery thing all the time, but it really, I will say it again, it really disappoints me that the mastery issue and the 2BG and less than 2BG issue, these were brought up on multiple avenues of communication. And it was almost like the thing that got released, they were like blindsided by these issues, when I know the issues were brought up. They were brought up the day that Set It and Forget It was announced as just a teaser on that Friday live stream. They were brought up right then. Discussions were had and nothing was done to address it. And now we're like, oh no, like it's such a surprise. These 2BG alliances are getting screwed while they're trying to just get their Gold 1 rewards and chill and have a fun time with Alliance War. That's all I have to say for today. I hope that you can leave me a comment if you agree with any of this, if you think I missed anything. I want to know what you're experiencing. What tier are you? Have you thought about these issues, or is this something that, is the first time you've heard it this way? I'd love to hear it, because I'm trying my best to give feedback to Kabam to try to fix all these issues. Really should be 2 wars a week if we're going to have a planning period. That's my final take on this whole thing. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you for visiting my channel. More content is coming soon. Would love to hear what you think. Hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.